This is actually a poem that Reverend Teresa wrote and invited me to share with you all, along with their love for all of you. No one knows exactly if a virus is animal, vegetable, or mineral. It attacks a cell and takes over with the single urgent purpose of making copies of itself. I know you must be tired, expectant of something unknown, which is in goodness, somewhere between a free sandwich and the recovery of a lost Stradivarius. It's okay not to know, even though the amount of practice you have at this is honestly somewhat low. It's okay to keep yourself and your family, the people you love, safe. And once you've washed your hands with soap for 20 seconds, while humming a myriad of songs, I just muttered the litany against fear from Dune because it suits me. It is okay to turn tenderly toward your heart and thank it for everything it has done this week. From gasping as it uncovers the magnitudes of difficulty of our problem. After all, once the resources are depleted, the virus kills the host cell, exploding it, to holding, and remembering. Your heart is our best line of defense. Courage to confront this pandemic with the steely resolve to flatten the curve, to keep us connected, to do the thing that is sometimes the very hardest. Be still and have done with doing. All this is the province of your heart. I salute you, hearts. You have my love. So I did pull a reading for us out of Scientific American. You should be able to follow along. Sorry about the dogs barking. While scientists are rushing to understand how the coronavirus works, researchers have long understood the toll that social isolation and loneliness take on the body. People who do not feel connected to others are more likely to catch a cold, experience depression, develop heart disease, have lower cognitive function, and live a shorter life. In fact, the long-term harm caused by loneliness is similar to smoking or obesity. Although isolation is the right response to the coronavirus pandemic, we need the exact opposite in response to the loneliness epidemic. So how can you cultivate your social well-being while avoiding infection? Whether you're quarantined, working remotely, or just being cautious, now is the perfect time to practice using technology in socially healthy ways. Here are a few suggestions for how to connect without contact. Face-to-face from afar. The next best thing to in-person interaction is video chat because facial cues, body language, and other nonverbal forms of communication are important for bonding. When possible, opt for video over messaging or calling and play around with doing what you would normally do with others. For example, try having a digital dinner with someone you met on a dating app, a virtual happy hour with friends, or a remote book club meeting. 1 minute kindness. Getting lots of likes on a social media post may give you a fleeting hit of dopamine, but receiving a direct message or email with a genuine compliment or expression of gratitude is more personal and longer lasting without taking much more time. When you find yourself scrolling through people's posts, stop and send one of them a few kind words. After all, we need a little extra kindness to counter the stress and uncertainty of the coronavirus. Cultivate your community. The basis of connection is having something in common. Whatever your niche interest is, there's an online community of people who share your passion and can't wait to nerd out with you about it. There are also digital support groups, such as for new parents or patients with a rare disease. Use these networks to engage around what matters most to you. Deepen or broaden. Fundamentally, there are two ways to overcome loneliness: nurture your existing relationships or form new ones. Reflect on your current state of social health and then take one digital action to deepen it, such as getting in touch with a friend or family member you haven't spoken with in a while, or to broaden it, such as reaching out to someone you'd like to get to know. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what the last few weeks have been like for me. The news about the coronavirus first started showing up when I was in Phoenix for a conference. And at the time, I really wasn't concerned at all. I spoke to some friends and I remember saying, oh, it's not much worse than the flu. I flew home through SeaTac Airport, and I wish I could say I was extra careful about washing my hands, but I'm not certain I actually was at that point. And I arrived home and went on with my life. And over the course of that week, I remember reading more and becoming a little bit more concerned. And that led to church 2 Sundays ago when we had our little lesson on hand washing. And we made the call not to hold hands or hug during the service. And we also, at that point, convened a safety committee, a health and safety committee, to start talking about what best protocols should be and making sure that all of our staff had some redundancy so that the work of the church could continue no matter what the circumstances were. So toward the end of that second week, I was scheduled to go to Bremerton, Washington, which is in Kitsap County, adjacent to King County. And the closer we got to the time where I was ready to leave, the more nervous I got about, the thing I'm most afraid of. I didn't want to catch it and bring it home. I didn't want to give it to all of you. And so I got in touch with my counterpart at the congregation where I was going to preach at, and they actually have a parish nurse. And just before, like the morning before we were set to leave, they decided to postpone the ordination, and the nurse told me I should stay home. So I did. The day after that, I heard about one of my colleagues who I had been in Phoenix with for a week. It turned out that she had a likely COVID-19 diagnosis, a clinical diagnosis. She wasn't actually tested. And so I preemptively went into self-quarantine. I said, better safe than sorry. It had been like right at the edge of the incubation period. And I figured I might as well just give it a couple more days and stay isolated. But then the next day I woke up and I was sick. I had a low-grade fever and I was really tired and I was coughing and I felt that kind of flu-ish feeling like, you've been hit by a truck. So I kept myself in quarantine, which meant not being able to be at church in person to hear the International Women's Day service and the women's choir. I've listened on our YouTube channel and it was amazing. And I'm sorry I wasn't there in person, but it was the responsible thing to do. So I stayed home and kept the Health and Safety Committee informed. And then earlier this week, I think it was around Wednesday, I developed shortness of breath. And so I did what they tell you to do. And I called my doctor, and my doctor took me through the checklist and sent me to the health department. And the health department sent me through the checklist and sent me to Gritman. And Gritman kept me for 4 hours, giving me a chest x-ray and an EKG and testing me for everything, including COVID-19. And the results aren't back yet. I won't know for another day or two. And the thing of it is, I don't and haven't felt that horrible. My symptoms have been really pretty mild all the way through. And I think I've been responsible, you know, in this kind of a situation. Sometimes the line between responsible and paranoid feels very thin. But I do think that I've stayed on the right side of that line, that I've been careful without dropping into that place of being afraid. And the truth of it is that the longer I've been sitting with this possibility, the more upsides I see. You know, if it turns out that my test is positive, then I'm going to be ahead of the curve, and on the other side, once my symptoms are cleared up and I'm not contagious, I'm going to be carrying immunity into the worst of this crisis, which means I'll be able to be of support to people who are sick, and that feels really good and right. And of course, if I don't have it, then I don't have it, and that's good news too. And then, you know, there's the challenge of figuring out, how do we do church in this time when we're not supposed to be together? I mean, the word religion means to bind together. It's sort of the work that we do. And it's turned into this incredible invitation to find new ways to connect and new ways to be the church that don't require being together face to face. I'm learning all kinds of new technologies. I certainly haven't mastered them yet, as we've already seen, but it's a challenge, and it's keeping my brain occupied, and I like learning new things. I also have to learn to speak extemporaneously. I usually preach at church from my Kindle. But when you read on Zoom, it's really obvious that you're reading and you don't connect with people. And so I'm learning to do this on the fly, and maybe it'll make me a better preacher down the road. And I've been thinking too about the potential upsides for the church. I mean, a lot of people talk about how they come to church on Sunday and they get a hit of hope, a hit of love, a hit of connection, groundedness, kindness, and it helps them get through the whole week. The great gift of this time is that we can have multiple hits. I can do Facebook Lives. We can do little Zoom gatherings every day if we want to. We're not going to have anything better to do, maybe. So we can find ways to give ourselves that little bit of uplift throughout the week. Now, I do want to lift up a couple of other neat upsides, or potential upsides. One of my colleagues posted that she got tired of singing songs while washing her hands. And so she started posting a new poem every day next to the mirror in the bathroom. And she washes her hands while she reads the poem. And that helps ground her. And it means she's going to have a repertoire of probably nearly memorized poems. So that would be an upside. I also think about, you know, everybody is saying it's really important when we're self-isolating or stuck in our homes to have a fair amount of structure, which means we can actually live the life that we most want to live, and make sure that we have time for meditation, that we have time for exercise, that we have time for creativity, whether that's journaling or drawing or painting or making music. We have time for games and fun. I had this moment the other day where I realized, oh, every day I can make myself do one of the projects around the house that I've not been wanting to do. And by the time this epidemic passes, my house is going to be so organized. It'll be amazing. And I think about people with kids and, what it would have been like when my kids were little. I would be teaching them how to paint cabinets, and I would be teaching them how to do laundry and how to change light bulbs and how to sort. I mean, how much fun would it be for them to sort through that box of old pictures? So I really do see the potential for a lot of upsides here. And above all, we're going to have this unstructured time. We're going to have this space and this capacity to connect with people, and to connect with people near and far. I think sometimes we get a little lazy and just, we love the ones we're with, which is completely right and appropriate. But this situation really does offer us the invitation to strengthen those filaments of connection that we have between us and all of the people that we love across the country and around the world. So, these are scary and anxious times. I don't think we could or should downplay the fact that, we're afraid. You wake up with a tickle in your throat and suddenly you're worried. You have visions of being in the ICU. Worse than that, we're most especially afraid of losing family, losing friends. The truth of it is, though, that even in the normal course of our lives, when there's not a pandemic, we never know which day is going to be our last. We are going to lose people we love. It's just part of the reality of life. And we can't change reality. We can't change the fact that we are mortal beings. That's part of what it means to be human. What we can do, and what we do, is make the choice to respond to that reality, not out of fear, but with love. That's who we are, we Unitarian Universalists. We are people who choose to respond with love over and over again. And responding with love is going to look different for each of us depending on our circumstances. We have to love ourselves and keep ourselves safe. But even if you are loving yourself by keeping yourself isolated, there's ways to offer love and support to other people. We're going to be coming up with lots of opportunities, ways to connect you. And if you're, say you're self-isolating because of underlying health conditions, and you know that there are also families with kids who are going absolutely stir crazy, you can read a story over Zoom to those stir crazy kids and give the parents the blessed gift of 15 minutes to have a glass of water and take a couple deep breaths. I know that there are people who are going to be impacted financially by what's going on. So there's going to be an opportunity for people who have money to contribute to relief funds. I think that my discretionary fund is going to get a fair amount of usage, I expect. And somebody in the chat did mention, what about giving? We don't actually have the capacity to donate through Zoom, but if you go to the website, palouseu.org, there's a donate button, and you can donate to the month of Sundays, because all of our nonprofits are going to take a hit. You can donate to the church to keep the lights on, and you can donate to the discretionary fund. You can also put a check in the mail. And as of now, the church itself, the church office is going to be open, so you can drop off checks or money or whatever during the times when summer is there, if you don't want to pay for a stamp or if you don't have stamps at home. So again, I know these times are scary, and it's okay to be afraid. But it's important too to put our faith and our trust in this greater love that holds us and sustains us and will give us everything we need. We are going to get through this. We're going to get through it, and we're going to get through it stronger and more connected than we might otherwise imagine. So be it, and so may it be.